Chapter 7, The Billionaire, continued. Multi-billionaire John Heitzman lay on his bed in his fancy apartment and smiled as he recalled with ever greater detail his childhood contact with the little girl, Sally. It was only now that he realized that this little girl had loved him. She loved him with her first childhood love, reckless, unanswered, and sincere. And perhaps, just perhaps, he loved her too. Or perhaps she was just a passing fancy. But she loved him as probably no one else would ever love him the rest of his life. And so the memories attached to the little house he built in the garden and his contact with Sally still evoked in him a lot of warm and pleasant feelings. These feelings warmed his body and made him feel good. After leaving the manor house, he met with Sally one more time 11 years later, but this time new feelings excited his whole body. John Heitzman even sat up a bit in his bed. His heart had started chasing the blood through his veins with ever-increasing strength. That meeting, he had forgotten about it. He had never thought about it all this time, but now it occupied his thoughts and made him excited. He came back to the estate where he had spent his childhood, returning after 11 years just for a day's visit. That was all the time he could afford. After lunch, he went out into the garden, and somehow he found himself heading down to the far corner of the garden, where, in among the acacia bushes, he had built his little house. As he pushed back the branches and stepped into the little glade, he literally froze in astonishment. The house he had built out of plastic boxes 11 years ago still stood in the same place as before, but all around were little beds of flowers, a sand-covered path leading to the entrance where a little bench was now standing, and the house itself was wreathed in flowers. The bench had not been there before, but it was there now. The grown-up John noted to himself. He pushed aside the curtain covering the entrance, bent down, and stepped into the little house. At once he could sense somebody's recent presence. His childhood photo stood in the little table, as before. The shelves were neatly lined with Sally's childhood toys. On one of the shelves next to the table stood a little bowl of fresh fruit. An air mattress lay on the floor, fitted with a coverlet. John stood there in the little house for about 20 minutes, remembering pleasant feelings from his childhood. Why is this happening, he thought. His family owned a whole lot of fancy villas. There was even a castle, but neither the castle nor the villas had ever evoked such pleasant feelings as arose here in this little house constructed of plastic seedling boxes. When he came out of the little house, he spied Sally. She was standing there silently at the doorway, as though reluctant to interfere with the surge of recollections that had broken upon his thought. John looked at her, noticed her cheeks flush with a rosy glow. She lowered her eyes in embarrassment and said in a soft, velvety, extraordinarily tender and emotional voice, "Hello, Johnnikins." He did not answer her right away. He stood there admiring Sally's extremely beautiful, mature body. Her figure-hugging dress fluttered in the breeze. Through the light material could be seen the outlines of her sculpted form, no longer that of a child, but of a maiden, feminine and supple. "Hi, Sally," John said, breaking a long pause. "You're still keeping house here?" "Yes, after all I promised. There's some fruit inside. It's been washed. Have some, it's for you." "I see. For me. Well then, let's go in together and have a bite." John pulled the curtain aside, letting Sally go ahead of him. She went in and squatted down. She took the bowl of fruit down from the shelf and placed it on the table beside the photograph in the frame. There were no chairs in the little house, and John sat down on the rug. He reached for a bunch of grapes and inadvertently touched Sally's shoulder. She turned her head, and their eyes met. She inhaled sharply, which caused a button to come undone on the cardigan stretched taut across her breasts. Vladimir Gray is a boob guy. We have all noticed. John grasped hold of Sally's shoulders and drew her close to himself. She did not resist. Quite the contrary, she leant against him with her feverishly glowing body. Sally did not resist when John slowly and carefully laid her down on the rug, or when he caressed her and kissed her lips and breasts, or when Sally was a virgin, was. Neither before nor afterward did John enter into intimate relations with any virgin. And now, after 40 years had passed since that last meeting, he, John Heitzman, suddenly realized that this had been the only really beautiful, reason-defying intimate moment he had ever had with a woman, or rather with a girl, with whom he had made a woman, or whom he had made a woman. After that, they fell asleep for a little while. When they awoke, they began talking with each other. What had they talked about? John Heitzman racked his memory as best as he could. He very much wanted to remember at least part of their conversation, and he remembered. Sally had mentioned how beautiful life was. She said her father was saving up some money to buy her a plot of land on which, if he could afford it, he would build her a modest house. And Sally herself would do the landscape design and put in a variety of plants, and she would lead a happy life and raise her children there. Back then, John decided within himself that he would help Sally. Wow, he thought, here's a girl that can be happy with just some plot of land and a little house. Mere trifles. I mustn't forget to help her acquire the land and the house. But John did forget about his intentions. He forgot completely about Sally. He was distracted by his life with its manifold charms. A new yacht and his own private aeroplane brought joy for a few days at their first appearance. He found a longer-lasting distraction in playing the money markets, in adding billions to his father's financial holdings, which he subsequently inherited, a distraction which excited his nerves and feelings for more than 20 years. It dominated over everything else. He went through first one marriage, then a second, as a matter of course. His wives left no trace of themselves behind. After he turned 40, playing the financial markets ceased to give him any pleasure, and he began to suffer increasingly frequent periods of depression, which finally led to a nervous breakdown. But now John Heitzman was no longer in a state of depression. His recollections of Sally had quite stirred him up, yet at the same time they made him angry at himself. How could this have happened, he thought. I promised myself that I would help Sally, this girl who loved me, to obtain a plot of land and a house, and I forgot. Now John Heitzman was a man accustomed to keeping his promises, especially those he made to himself. He realized he would never stop being angry with himself until he pressed a button to summon his secretary. When the secretary entered, John Heitzman was sitting on his bed. Even though he found it difficult to get out the words, for the first time in the past 6 months, he began talking. Over 50 years ago, I was living in a certain manor house. I don't remember the address. You can find it in the archives. There is a gardener working there. Don't remember his name, but it's in our archived bookkeeping accounts. The gardener had a daughter, and her name was Sally. Find out where Sally is living now. I need this information by tomorrow morning at the latest. If you have it earlier, let me know at once, regardless of the hour, night or day. Do it. The secretary rang at dawn the next morning. As he walked into the office, John Heitzman was sitting in his wheelchair by the window, wearing a dark blue three-piece suit. He was shaved, and his hair was neatly combed. Sir, the gardener was let go 40 years ago and died soon afterwards, but his death managed to buy 5 acres of land on an abandoned ranch in Texas. On this land, he started building a house, but broke his back during the construction, and he died. His daughter Sally finished building the house and now lives in it. Here's the address. That's all the details we have at the moment, but on your order we'll go ahead and gather all the information you need. John Heitzman took the piece of paper from his secretary's hand and examined it carefully. After folding it neatly, he put it into his inside jacket pocket and said, "Have the helicopter ready for takeoff in 30 minutes. It should land about 4 or 5 miles from her villa in Texas. Have a car meet me at the landing site. Just an ordinary-looking car. No limousine, no bodyguards, just the driver. Do it." Footnote, 5 acres is approximately 2 hectares of land. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, John Heitzman, limping slightly and leaning on his cane, made his way up the gravelled path to a modest cottage surrounded by luscious greenery. When he first spied her, her back was turned to him. The elderly woman was standing on a small stepladder, washing the outside of a window. John Heitzman stopped and stared at this woman with her beautiful ash-colored hair. She could feel his gaze, and she turned to face him. For a while she simply stood there with her eyes fixed on the old man, standing in the path. Then all of a sudden she jumped down from her ladder and ran to greet him. Her step was light. Nothing about this woman looked old. She stopped about a meter from where Heitzman was standing, and in a quiet but emotional voice said, "Hello, Johnnykins." Immediately she lowered her eyes and put up her hands to cover the blush on both of her cheeks. "Hello, Sally," said John, without another word. Or rather, he was speaking, but only to himself, not aloud. "How beautiful you are, Sally. How beautiful are your sparkling eyes, and the little wrinkles around your eyes. You are still just as beautiful and good as before." Aloud, he said, "I was just passing through, Sally. I heard you were living here, so I decided to stop by. Maybe stay the night, if I'm not imposing, that is." "I'm so happy to see you, Johnnykins. Of course you can stay the night. I'm here alone, but tomorrow my 2 grandchildren will be arriving for a week. I've got 2 of them. Granddaughter, she's 9, a little grandson. He's 12 already. Come on in, Johnnykins, and I'll give you a bowl of herb tea. I know just the kind of tea you need. Come on." "So you were married, Sally? You had children?" "I'm still married, Johnnykins," Sally answered cheerfully. "And we had 1 son, and now 2 grandchildren. Why don't we sit down at the table out there on the porch, and I'll bring the tea out to you." John Heitzman sat down in one of the plastic armchairs on the veranda. When Sally brought out a large bowl of some kind of tea, he asked her, "How come you said you knew what kind of tea I needed, Sally?" "See, my father used to gather herbs for your father. He'd dry them and make a tea, and this tea was a great help to your father. I learned how to gather herbs too. My dad told me that you too, Johnnykins, have inherited this same disease." "How did you know I was coming?" "I didn't know, Johnnykins. You see, I gather them in case of any need. But tell me, how are you doing? How's your life turned out?" "In a lot of different ways, I guess. Been busy with a variety of things, but I don't want to think about that right now. You've got a fine place here, Sally. It's beautiful. So many flowers. And a garden." "Yeah, it's really nice. I really like it here. But you see over there to the right, they've got a building project in the works. They're planning to build a waste treatment facility. And over to the left, back over there, there'll be another factory of some sort. They're talking about moving us out. But you're tired from your trip. Looks like you've been traveling quite a distance, Johnnykins. I can see how exhausted you are. I'll make up a bed for you by the open window. Just lie down and relax. Just drink your tea first." John Heitzman got undressed with some difficulty. He really was tired. His muscles, atrophied by 6 months of lying motionless in bed, could only barely keep him on his feet. He finally managed to pull the blanket over him, and he fell asleep at once. Lately, he had been unable to get any sleep at all without a sleeping pill. But here, all at once, he slept till noon. It did not see the morning. He got up and took a shower, and then went out onto the veranda. Sally was getting lunch ready in the summer kitchen, and a little boy and a little girl were helping her. "Good afternoon, Johnnykins. Looks like you've got sleep. You look so rejuvenated. Here, meet the grandchildren. This is Emmy, and this young fella's name is George." "I'm John Heitzman. Good morning," said the elderly man, extending his hand to the boy. "So there, you're officially introduced," declared Sally. "You two go take a walk and work up an appetite while Emmy and I get lunch ready." "I'd like to show you our garden," George said to Heitzman. The old man and the young boy walked through the marvelous garden together. The boy kept pointing... I lost my place. The boy kept pointing out various plants and could not stop talking about them. Heitzman, in the meantime, was concentrating on thoughts of his own. When they reached the end of the garden, the boy announced, "Now behind this acacia bush is my apartment. Grandma made it for me." Heitzman pulled aside a branch and looked. There in a small glade behind the acacia bush stood his little house, made from the same plastic seedling boxes. Only the roof looked a bit different, and the curtain hovering the entrance The curtain covering the entrance was different. Heitzman pulled back the curtain and stooped slightly as he stepped into the little house. All the furnishings were just as he remembered them. Only the photograph on the table was laminated in plastic sheathing. The photo was of Sally's grandson. Everything's just the way it should be, he thought. The little house now has a new occupant, and hence a new photograph. Heitzman picked up the photo and held it in both hands. To begin conversation, he remarked, "Well now, little George, your photo came out pretty well here." "That's not my photograph, Uncle John. That's a picture of a boy Grandma was friends with in childhood. It just happens that he looks like me." John Heitzman made his way back up the garden path as fast as his legs could carry him, limping with his cane, stumbling. Panting and feeling a little confused, he approached Sally and asked, "Where is he now? Where is your husband, Sally?" "Please calm down, John," Sally said softly. "You shouldn't allow yourself to get so excited. Please sit down. Turns out, John, that back in my childhood I promised a very fine young boy that I would be his wife." "That was a game," John Heitzman was practically shouting as he leapt out of the chair. "A children's game." "Maybe so," Sally responded. "Anyway, let's say I'm still continuing to play it, and I'm pretending that you're my husband and my beloved." "George does look a lot like me, the way I looked as a boy. Does that mean you gave birth to a child after that night, Sally? Did you have a baby?" "Yes, John, I had our son, and he looks like me. But he very much has your genes, and our grandson is the spitting image of you." John Heitzman's gaze alternated between Sally and the boy and the girl sitting at the table out on the veranda. He was no longer able to speak. His thoughts and feelings were confused. Then, for reasons which he himself did not fully understand, he said in a businesslike tone, "I have to leave right away. Goodbye, Sally." He took a couple of steps down the path, then turned and headed over to Sally, who was standing there quietly. Barely supporting himself on his cane, he got down on one knee in front of her, took her hand, and gave it a long, slow kiss. "Sally, I have some very important, urgent matters to attend to. I have to leave immediately." She put her hand on his head, softly rumpling his hair. "Yes, of course. You have to leave if you've got important matters and problems to take care of. If you run into any difficulties, John, you can always come here to our home. Our son now manages his own little firm. It's known by the lovely name of Lotos. He does landscape design. He's had no special training, but I taught him myself, and he's doing some very smart designs, and there's hardly any shortage of orders. He helps me financially, and he visits me every month. It seems you've got some money problems, and a health problem too. Come back, John. I know how to give you treatment, and we've got enough money to live on." "Thank you, Sally. Thank you. I've got to hurry. I've got to." He walked down the path to the gate, his thoughts all caught up in a plan that he had in mind. In the meantime, Sally watched John's receding figure and whispered to herself, "Come back, my love." She was still repeating this phrase like a mantra, even an hour later, forgetting about her grandchildren. She did not even notice the helicopter circling for more than half an hour overhead, over her plot of land, with its little house and its marvelous garden. By the time John Heitzman's helicopter landed on the office tower roof, his close associates and their secretaries were already hard at work in the boardroom, feverishly checking figures, getting ready to report to the boss. They had grown unaccustomed to meeting in his presence, and now it was with considerable fear and trepidation that they awaited his arrival. When John Heitzman entered the room, everybody rose to their feet. He began speaking even before reaching his chair at the head of the boardroom table. "Sit down. No reports today. Listen carefully to what I have to say. I'm not going to repeat myself. No time. So, in Texas, there's this villa. Here is the address. Your instructions are to buy up all the lands surrounding this house within a radius of 100 miles. Buy up all the industries located on these lands, even if it means paying 3 times their worth. Whichever one of you is responsible for buying and selling real estate can leave the room now and get to work immediately. Put all our agents on the job if required. This operation should take no more than 1 week. One of the associates jumped up and hurried toward the exit. John Heitzman continued, all buildings, factories, facilities located on these lands are to be demolished within a month, max, even if this means hiring hundreds of construction companies. A month from now, grass should be planted on these sites. Heitzman instructed the last associate remaining in the room, there's a firm in Texas with the pretty name of Lotos. Sign a 5-year contract with it. Engage this firm to design communities for all the lands we buy up around that villa in Texas. Whatever the firm asks, double it. Do it. 2 weeks later, Heitzman appeared before an audience of 1,500 people. The audience, recruited with the help of personnel firms, comprised landscape design specialists, botanists, and agronomists. Everyone wanted to get work, especially since the advert mentioned the contract amount, twice the standard average. Heitzman walked up to the podium and began speaking in his usual authoritative tone, which was rather sharp. According to the contracts being offered you, each of you will receive free of charge a plot of land for lifetime use, measuring 5 acres. You'll be offered several designs for prefab homes to choose from, and these homes will be built on each plot at whatever spot that you designate, all at my company's expense. For the next 5 years, the company will make payments to each adult member of your family as specified in the contract. Your job is to make the territory you receive a place of beauty. You will plant gardens and flower beds and make ponds and pathways. You will make everything beautiful and good. The company will pay the cost of seedlings and whatever seed materials you request. That's it. If there are no questions, those who wish to accept my offer can go sign their contract. But the 1,500-seat auditorium was enshrouded in utter silence. Nobody got up from their seats to head over to the tables where secretaries were waiting with contracts ready to sign. After a minute of complete silence, an elderly man rose from his seat and asked, "Tell me, sir, these lands where you propose we settle, are they contaminated with deadly pollutants?" "No," replied one of Heitzman's associates. "On the contrary, this whole area has a comparatively clean environment, since the soil is quite fertile." "Then tell us honestly," asked a young woman, jumping up from her seat, "what kind of an experiment are you proposing to conduct on people? Many of us have children, and I, for one, do not want to subject my child to goodness knows what kind of an experiment." The hall erupted with a general buzz, and cries of "opportunists," "inhuman," "monsters" could be heard. People started getting up and filing toward the exit. Heitzman's associates tried to explain and respond to the questions, but to no avail. Heitzman himself sat there helplessly and watched the people leave the room. He realized that their departure were the final blows to his hopes, or something even worse. He so wanted to do something nice for Sally, for his son and grandchildren. He wanted not only for there to be no more belching smokestacks in the vicinity of Sally's cozy cottage, but for there to be gardens all around. Good neighbors, too. He had bought up the lands, and the belching smokestacks had been demolished on his orders. Grass had been sown in their place, but the land could only become good if good people lived on it. And here they were leaving. They did not understand. How could they understand anyway? What could make them believe? Stop. All at once it dawned on him. They knew nothing about the situation, which is why they did not believe. If he told them the truth... John Heitzman rose to his feet and quietly, still hesitantly, began to speak. "People," he began, "I understand. I need to explain to you the reasons for this action by my company. But they're impossible to explain. There's no way that this can be explained. It's just that see, it's like this, or rather, there's something personal to me in all these contracts. How shall I put it? Heitzman was confused and did not know how to continue. The people had stopped in their tracks. They were standing in the aisles and the exit doorways. They were all looking intently at John. They were silent, and here he was, not knowing how to proceed. Yet somehow he managed to pull himself together and go on. Back in my childhood, in my youth, you see, I loved this girl. But I didn't realize back then that I was in love with her. I was later married to other women. I got involved in business, and for the past 50 years, I never saw this girl. Never even thought about her. And then just recently, I remembered her. I discovered that she was the only person who ever sincerely loved me. And she still does. But I didn't know about it. Like I said, I'd forgotten all about her, and I realized that she was the only one I could ever love. Then I met her. Now, of course, she's along in years, but for me, she's still the same as back when I knew her years before. She loves her garden. She does everything so beautifully. I just wanted there to be beauty around her, and good neighbors. It's better for her to have good and happy neighbors living nearby. But how to make that happen? As a businessman, I've managed to put a bit of money aside, and I bought up the land. I divided it into plots and drew up these contracts. I did it for the one that I love. Or maybe I did it for myself. This last sentence John uttered, almost as though putting the question to himself. After that, he began speaking as though talking aloud to himself, as though he did not see the people standing in front of him. We live for something. What? What do we live for? We strive for something. What is it that we're striving for? I'm going to die soon. What am I leaving behind except dust? But no, I'm not going to die. Not until I finish my project, and I'll leave behind something eternal. I'll leave behind a garden for the one that I love. I'll leave behind many gardens. At first, I wanted to simply hire a whole lot of workers and sign a contract with a big company doing landscape design, sign a contract so employees could look after the plants, but then it dawned on me, any kind of beauty will turn out lifeless if you don't create it for yourself. And that's why I decided to make it so that someone created it for themselves. That's why I'm offering you the plots of land and the houses, and all I ask in return is for beauty around the person that I love. You didn't believe that the terms offered in these contracts were genuine. You didn't know what goals the party offering you these contracts was really pursuing, but now you know. At this point, John fell silent. The people standing in the hall were silent too. The first to break the silence was the woman who had expressed the most skepticism earlier. First, she hurried over to the row of tables standing by the stage with no contracts laid out, and asked one of the secretaries to enter her name on a copy, which she signed without even reading it. Then she turned to the people standing in the auditorium and exclaimed, "There, I've signed it. I was the first one to sign. That means I'm going to go down in history because I was the first. When you think about it, not a single man, no matter how rich, has ever given a greater gift to the one that he loves than this person standing right there on the stage. It would be impossible for him to do more." "Nobody could even think of doing more," cried another woman, "in the whole recorded history of mankind." "I love you," called out a third. "I want to plot right next to your beloved," declared a fourth. "What's her name?" Her name, began Heitzman, but went on. "Maybe it's better she doesn't know. Let her think that this was all the will of fate." With a single surge, the people in the hall headed over to the tables standing by the stage. A queue formed. People gaily joked with each other, calling each other simply neighbor, but the majority, especially the women, kept staring at the man on the stage with sparkles of love in their eyes. For the first time in his life, John Heitzman felt the energy of good directed at him, the energy of love and unfeigned delight emanating from many human hearts, in all triumphant energy, capable of healing any ill. He walked off the stage, now without a trace of a limp. For several months, he personally took active part in the demolition of the remaining facilities on the bought-up lands, discussed the details of design on the whole community around Sally's cottage, and alternative landscape designs for the different plots, along with the whole infrastructure. A year later, when John Heitzman once again approached the gate leading to Sally's cottage. As far as the eye could see, people were already planting little saplings for their large gardens. Several saplings stood near Sally's gate. With a carefully wrapped root system, it seemed as though Sally had intuitively felt him coming, for she ran out to greet him. "John, it's so good to see you again. Really good. Hello there, John." She ran up to him with a spring in her step, bubbling over like a young girl. She grasped John's arm, pulling him over to have a cup of tea, all the while happily chattering away nonstop. "You know what's been happening, John? You know what a miracle's been taking place here all around? I'm so superbly happy. There's no more belching smokestacks next to our house. There's really good neighbors. See how life is sprucing up all around? Really sprucing up. If you'd had any business failures, John, don't worry your little head about it. You can just laugh at it and come on in, move in with us. We're wealthy now. Our son's just got himself a real big contract. I mean big. He's in charge of a whole design and planning project. We've got ourselves a little more land. Our son's going to build himself a house now, and the two of us, if you want, can live here." "I do want to," replied John, adding, "Thank you, Sally, for the invitation." "But why go on living in an old house?" boomed out a voice from behind John's back. He turned and caught sight of his son. He knew right off that it was his son, and the young man continued, "If I understand correctly, you are actually my father? When little George told me that you thought the photo of Mom's childhood friend was of him, I knew who had come. And Mom never did learn to hide her true feelings. I, of course, do not yet have the same feelings towards you that Mom does, but for the sake of my happy parents, I am ready to pay for the building of a new house for the two of you." "Thank you, son," said John, almost overcome with emotion. He wanted to give his son a hug, but for some reason hesitated. The young man stepped toward him on his own, extended his hand, and introduced himself. "I'm John." "Great," said Sally, "and it's great now that the two of you have got acquainted. When you get to know each other better, you'll really like each other. But right now, let's have some tea." And as they sat at the table, Sally kept on talking animatedly, nonstop, about the extraordinary events that had been taking place in the last few months. "Can you just imagine, John? Just imagine. Here they've been telling a story like the most beautiful tale in the world. A tale which is coming true to life. Just imagine, John, people say that all these lands were bought up by one and the same person. And then this person invited the best designers, agronomists, and gardeners, and gave each of them several acres of land, free of charge, for their lifetime use. He told them to make their plots beautiful. He offered them all saplings and seeds, free of charge, and will even keep on paying them for 5 years to beautify their own plots. Just imagine, it's he who's paying them. He poured out all his savings into this project, right down to the last cent." "Well, maybe not all," Heitzman protested. "People say he put in all. And do you know why he did this?" "Why?" asked John calmly. "That's the whole beauty of it. He did it so that the one he loved could have a place to live amongst all this beauty amidst. They say that she's a landscape designer as well, and somewhere around here she's got a cottage too. Only nobody knows who she is or where she lives. Can you just imagine, Johnnykins, what will happen when people find out who she is?" "What?" "What else? Everyone will want to go have a look at her and even touch her like a goddess. I myself, for instance, would want to touch her. She's probably an extraordinary woman. Maybe she's extraordinary outwardly, maybe inwardly. Everybody says that there's no other woman in the world who could inspire a man to take such an unusual and beautiful step. That's why all the people will want to see her and even touch this man and his extraordinary wife." "Probably they will," John agreed, adding, "But what can we do about it, Sally?" "What do you mean we?" Sally wondered. I say we because that extraordinary woman, the one whose account all these things around are happening, is you, Sally. Sally stared at John without blinking, trying to make sense of what she had just heard. When the first glimpses of understanding dawned on her, she let the cup she was holding slip out of her hands, but nobody paid attention to the sound of it breaking to pieces. John turned his head in the direction of another sound, the sound of a chair falling, when his son impulsively jumped up from his seat. The younger John rushed over to his father and said excitedly, in a soft baritone voice, "Father, Father, can I give you a hug?" John was the first to embrace his son. He could hear how his son's heart was racing. His son gave him a hug in turn, whispering excitedly, "The world has never witnessed such a powerful declaration of love, without even using words of love, ever. I'm proud of you, Father. I'm so happy for you, Father." When father and son turned to Sally, she was still trying to come to terms with what had happened. All at once her cheeks flushed with a rosy glow, as though smoothing out the wrinkles around her eyes. Tears began rolling down her cheeks. Sally was embarrassed. She rushed over to the elder John, grabbed him by the arm, and led him down the front porch steps. Their son watched as his parents, hand in hand, started making their way slowly down the path, heading for the acacia bushes which concealed the little house of their childhood, then began skipping toward the acacia like youngsters. 10 years later, a much younger-looking John was sitting at a local cafe bar with some other men from the community. He laughingly explained, "No, I won't run for any presidential office. Don't even try to tempt me. It's not just a matter of age. You don't have to be president to run the country. That's something you can do right from your own garden. See, you've shown by example how to really make a good life, and America is now turning into a flourishing garden. If it goes on like this, heck, we'll even overtake Russia." We'll do it, echoed Sally, who had just come in. "All right, now, let's head home, Johnnykins. The baby won't go to sleep without you." Then she added, whispering into his ear, "And neither will I." And so they began walking home, down a shady, sweet-smelling alley. These two not yet old people, John Heitzman and Sally. In the springtime, it always seemed that their life was just beginning, just as real life was beginning all over America. "That's a beautiful ending to your story," I told Anastasia, when she had finished telling her account of the future. "All your stories are so encouraging. Will something like that really happen in real life?" "It will most definitely happen, Vladimir. That is no made-up story, but a projection of the future. The names and locales are not important. What is important is the essence, the idea, and the dream. And if my story has evoked positive feelings, then people will certainly project its essence into the future. And many people will add their own details and infuse the projection with their own great meaning and conscious awareness. How does all that come about? See how simple it is. Did you like the story?" "Did I like it? I'll say." "Do you want it to come true in the future?" "Of course I do." "What if you tell it to others? Will there be those who will want to see something like that come true too?" "I dare say that there will." "You see, that means that anybody will want to, who takes on the role not just of an observer of history, but an actual participant in it. They will make the story come true." "Yes, I think that's clear enough. I'm just a bit sad that you went and painted such a beautiful scene in respect to foreign entrepreneurs rather than Russians." "Vladimir, for Russians, life is already drawing beautiful and real scenes all on its own. Or to put it more accurately, many Russians are working out the divine eternity, and that is something you can tell about all by yourself." "By myself? Well, I guess so. I really do know quite a few Russian entrepreneurs who have taken not just one but several hectares of land and are building their domains on them, just like the ones you described. Only their stories aren't as romantic." "Grand chapters need to be written about anyone who has made conscious contact with the earth. Such a story will be inexhaustible. Look, here is just one story. See if you can recognize some familiar names.